Picture Hollywood at the exact instant two forces of nature collided. Not metaphorically. Literally. Two men walking into the same space and instantly recognizing the same thing in each other. Danger. Not fear. Not jealousy yet. Danger. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that quietly says, "There's not enough room for both of us." From that very first encounter, something primal switched on. This wasn't about friendship, respect, or admiration. This was survival. Alpha versus alpha. A silent war, declared without a single word spoken out loud. What made it explosive wasn't just ego. It was similarity. Both were outsiders. Both were underestimated. Both were told, in different ways, that they didn't belong. And when two people who clawed their way up from nothing finally see someone else who could take it all away, they don't shake hands. They tighten their grip. Hollywood didn't just witness competition. It witnessed obsession forming in real time. From that moment forward, everything became a scoreboard. Every headline mattered. Every paycheck mattered. Every opening weekend mattered. Success wasn't enjoyed, it was measured. If one broke a record, the other didn't celebrate. He trained harder. He hunted bigger projects. He recalculated. The race was no longer about making great movies. It was about dominance. About who stood higher. About who made the industry bend first. And here's where it gets unhinged. This rivalry didn't stay in contracts and box office reports. It infected everything. Muscles weren't just muscles, they were statements. Weapons weren't props, they were messages. Even on-screen body counts became ammunition. Who killed more? Who looked stronger doing it? Who walked away cleaner? When normal competition ends at the job, this one followed them into the gym, into casting rooms, into private conversations with agents and producers. Nothing was neutral anymore. Then came the night that turned whispers into legend. A room full of stars. Glitter. Cameras. Applause. Smiles stretched just a little too tight. And suddenly, flowers flew. Not metaphorically. Literally. A bouquet arcing through the air toward the table of a rival. In that instant, it stopped being rumor. It stopped being subtle. It became undeniable. This wasn't friendly competition. This was personal. A public signal sent in the most Hollywood way possible. Loud enough to be seen. Ambiguous enough to be denied. Unforgettable enough to never disappear. But here's what makes this rivalry so dangerous. They weren't even playing the same game. One was building a myth. A machine. A future where humans were optional. Larger-than-life worlds where logic bowed to spectacle. The other was grounding his stories in pain, sweat, and rage. Fighters. Survivors. Men who bled and kept moving. Two completely different cinematic languages. Two separate lanes. And yet, both men were convinced there was only one summit, and only one name deserved to be planted at the top. What the audience never saw was what it cost to keep climbing. Because muscles lie. Cameras lie. Posters lie. Bodies don't. Behind every iconic scene was damage stacking quietly. Joints grinding down. Nerves screaming. Surgeries waiting their turn. Training that crossed the line from discipline into punishment. Pain became routine. Injury became inconvenient, not stopping points. The image had to be maintained at any cost, because slowing down meant falling behind. And falling behind was not an option. But obsession doesn't come from nowhere. Long before fame, before money, before applause, both of these men learned the same lesson in different ways. No one is coming to save you. Childhood wasn't soft. It wasn't forgiving. It was pressure, criticism, and the constant sense that love had conditions. That kind of beginning doesn't disappear when life improves. It mutates. It turns into hunger, into drive, into a refusal to lose, because losing feels like being dragged back to a place you swore you escaped forever. That's why this rivalry burned so hot. It wasn't about movies. Movies were just the battlefield. And this is where things start to change, but not in the way you expect. So stay with me, because what happens next is not about revenge, or defeat, or victory. It's about something far more unsettling. And if you're still watching at the end, you'll understand why this story could only end one way. Before we continue, do this. Drop a comment saying you're still here. Hit the like button, so you don't lose this video. and share it with someone who thinks they already know this story, because they don't. If you think this rivalry burned itself out, think again. It didn't fade. It evolved. And when it evolved, it became even more dangerous. Because now it wasn't just instinct, it was strategy. At a certain point, the competition stopped being loud and became surgical. No more obvious shots. No more public explosions. Everything moved underground. Scripts were studied like battle plans. Casting rumors were monitored. Agents talked. Producers whispered. And every move made by one was immediately analyzed by the other. Not emotionally, coldly. Like chess. If one chose a project, the other didn't ask if it was good. He asked what it meant. The industry felt it. Executives played both sides. Studios leaned into the tension because tension sells. And slowly, something strange happened. Hollywood itself began orbiting around these two men. Not because they were friends. Because they were forces. Each one pushed the other to go bigger, louder, more extreme. The genre expanded because neither would allow the other to define it alone. But here's the twist no one talks about. The same obsession that built them started breaking them. The body keeps score, whether you want it to or not. Years of punishment add up. The adrenaline fades faster. Recovery takes longer. And one day, you wake up and realize that the machine you built to survive success is now the thing hurting you the most. Pain stops being a badge of honor and starts being a conversation you can't ignore. And then something unexpected happened. Time passed. Not suddenly. Quietly. Almost invisibly. The competition didn't disappear, but the edges dulled. The fury softened. Perspective crept in. And in the space where pure rivalry used to live, something unfamiliar began to grow. Recognition. Not admiration yet, but acknowledgement. The realization that no one else could truly understand what this path demanded except the person who walked it beside you. That realization changes everything. Because when the noise fades, what remains is legacy. And legacy forces uncomfortable questions. What did we build? Who did we inspire? What survives when the spotlight moves on? And for the first time, the answer wasn't me. It was us. Together, they reshaped what action meant. Not martial artists. Not ensembles. Not superheroes sharing screen time. Singular figures. Physical credibility. Believability through presence alone. The era of the lone figure against impossible odds didn't just happen. It was created. And once created, it couldn't be undone. Generations followed. Some copied. Some evolved it. All benefited from it. Then came the next shift, the most personal one of all. Family. Because when you've lived through scarcity, violence, and emotional absence, you don't raise children the same way you were raised. You overcorrect. You reflect. You question everything. Privilege becomes something to explain, not enjoy blindly. Work becomes something to model, not demand. Empathy becomes non-negotiable. And suddenly, the men once defined by aggression are talking about kindness, awareness, and responsibility. That's when the rivalry finally transformed. Not into nostalgia. Not into marketing. Into respect. Real respect. The kind that doesn't need to be performed. The kind that admits difference without judgment. One steady. Calculated. Disciplined. The other emotional. Intense. Consumed by passion. The very traits that once made them clash became the reasons they valued each other. They didn't become the same. They understood why they never could be. And if you think that's the end of the story, you're wrong. Because what they admit about each other next reframes everything you just heard. And it explains why this rivalry didn't destroy them like it destroys so many others. Before we go there, do this. If you've ever believed competition made you better, or worse, comment the word legacy below. And make sure you're still watching, because the final part is where the truth lands. Here's the part no one expects. After all the tension, the sabotage, the obsession, the silent wars and public moments, the final revelation isn't about who won. It's about why neither of them could have become what they became alone. Strip away the fame. Strip away the money. Strip away the myth. What you're left with are two men who needed an external force strong enough to match their internal fire. Without that mirror, without that threat, without that pressure, something essential would have gone unused. Talent is common. Hunger is common. Sustained obsession at that level is not. Each one became the measuring stick for the other, not consciously at first. Instinctively. One raised the ceiling, the other refused to accept it. One escalated, the other adapted. And through that cycle, an entire genre evolved. Not because they planned it, but because neither would surrender momentum. That's the uncomfortable truth. Rivalry didn't weaken them. It sharpened them. But sharpening a blade comes at a cost. And both of them admit it now. There were moments they should have stopped. Times when the body asked for mercy, and the mind refused. Pain that lingers. Damage that doesn't reverse. Looking back, there are regrets, not about the work, but about the limits ignored. The irony is brutal. The very discipline that built their image also delayed the wisdom to slow down. And yet, neither would erase it. Because legacy isn't built on comfort. It's built on risk. On belief so strong it borders on irrational. On the refusal to accept backup plans. On committing fully. Even when failure is possible. Even when the cost is high. Especially when the cost is high. That's why this story still matters. It's not about movies. It's not about muscles. It's about what happens when two unstoppable forces collide and refuse to move aside. Sometimes they destroy each other. Sometimes one disappears. But in rare cases, very rare cases, they elevate the entire landscape simply by refusing to quit. And now it's on you. If this story surprised you, if it changed the way you see competition, ambition, or rivalry, here's what to do next. Leave a comment sharing which moment hit you hardest, without spoilers. Just a feeling. Hit like so this conversation reaches others who think rivalry is only negative. And if you want more deep stories like this, turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Because some legends aren't born from peace. They're forged in conflict.